The alarms rang through the steel corridors of the human outpost. Explosions shook the ground as fire lit up the night sky. Soldiers ran in every direction, shouting orders and pulling civilians toward the bunkers. The alien empire had attacked, without warning, their fleet descending like shadows from the stars. The human colonies had been caught off guard, and the war had begun with fire and blood. Among the chaos was Captain Arden, a soldier with no family left to protect. He moved through the burning ruins, pulling the wounded from the rubble, guiding children away from the flames. His rifle stayed ready, but his heart was heavy. He had fought many battles before, but this one felt different. The aliens were not here just to conquer. They were here to erase. Every scream of the dying told him the enemy wanted nothing left behind. While searching through the wreckage of a collapsed dome, Arden heard a strange sound. It was not human. It was not the mechanical whine of alien weapons either. It was a low growl, broken with a whimper, almost like a wounded animal. Against his better judgment, he followed it. There, hidden under twisted beams and shattered glass, was a creature unlike anything he had seen. It had dark scales, glowing eyes, and razor-sharp teeth. Even as a cub, it radiated danger. It was one of the predators the Alien Empress was rumored to keep beasts bred only to guard her throne. But this one was small, weak, and trapped. Arden aimed his rifle at its head. He should have pulled the trigger. One shot, and the problem would be gone. No human had ever survived being near such a predator. It was said they grew fast, became killers in days, and followed only the Empress's call. But as he looked into its glowing eyes, he saw fear, not fury. The cub whimpered again, its clawed paw struggling against the debris. For the first time, Arden saw not a weapon, but a child fighting to live. The ground shook again as a blast struck nearby. Dust and sparks filled the air. Arden made his decision. He lowered his rifle, pulled the debris aside, and lifted the predator cub into his arms. Its body was warm, trembling, yet it clung to him tightly, like it understood he was its only hope. Against all reason, he hid it beneath his jacket and carried it back through the flames. If anyone saw, they would think he had lost his mind. Maybe he had. But something told him this choice mattered more than survival. For weeks after, Arden kept the cub hidden. He built a small shelter outside the ruins, feeding it scraps of rations and water from broken pipes. At night, he watched it sleep. Curled. Beside him, its breathing heavy but calm. Each day it grew larger, stronger, its eyes brighter. Sometimes it would stare at him with strange focus, as if trying to understand the man who had saved it. Arden knew he had taken a dangerous risk. If the aliens discovered he had their missing beast, they would kill him slowly. If his own people found out, they would brand him a traitor. Yet he did not let go. The predator grew, and with it, a bond began to form. It would nudge him when hungry, growl when danger approached, and even curl around him during the freezing nights. Once, when raiders tried to loot the ruins, the predator bared its teeth and made a sound that sent them fleeing into the dark. Arden had not even given it a name, but it followed him faithfully. He had saved it once, but now it was saving him. What Arden did not know was that the predator was not just any beast. It was the Empress's missing guardian, a creature of legend, whose bloodline was tied to the rule of an empire. The aliens were already searching for it across the stars, tearing apart human worlds to find their lost prize. But while the galaxy burned in war, one man had taken in the Empress's predator, and together they were growing stronger. Their story had only begun. The nights grew colder, and the fires of war spread across the horizon. Arden kept the cub, hidden in a broken underground shelter, far from the eyes of both human patrols and alien scouts. By now, the predator had grown taller than a man's waist. Its claws gleamed sharper, and its eyes glowed like molten gold in the dark. Yet when it looked at Arden, it did not see prey. It saw the one who had lifted it from death, and it stayed close to him always. Arden learned quickly how to feed it. At first, scraps of old rations had been enough. But as weeks turned into months, the predator's hunger grew. It needed meat, fresh and raw. Arden hunted quietly, taking down small animals from the forests beyond the ruins. The predator would tear into the flesh with hunger, but it never turned its fangs toward him. When finished, it would curl against his side, letting out a strange purr that shook the air. Arden had once thought of killing it when it grew too strong, but now he could not. It was no longer just a beast. It was family. Rumors began to spread among the survivors. People spoke of strange tracks in the ash, deep claw marks that no human tool could make. They spoke of guttural roars that echoed in the night, scaring off scavengers and enemy patrols. Some believed a monster was stalking the ruins. Others whispered that perhaps one of the Empress's pets had escaped her palace. Arden said nothing. He listened quietly, his hand resting on his rifle whenever someone came too close to the truth. The predator grew faster than any normal creature. Its muscles hardened, its scales thickened, and its mind sharpened. One evening, Arden returned from scavenging supplies and found the predator staring at the broken screen of an old datapad. Its claws tapped the glass as if it was trying to understand the shapes of letters and symbols. Arden watched in silence, realizing it was learning. Not just surviving, not just killing, learning. The thought chilled him. What was this creature truly meant to be? One night, alien scouts passed through the ruins. Their voices hissed in their strange tongue, their searchlights cutting through smoke. Arden froze, hiding with the predator in the shadows of the broken walls. The cub, now nearly his size, crouched low, its tail twitching. When one scout came too close, its hand brushing against Arden's hiding place, the predator released a low growl. Arden placed his hand on its snout, whispering softly, begging it to stay quiet. To his shock, the predator obeyed. Its body trembled with rage, but it lowered its head, trusting his command. The aliens moved on, unaware how close they had been to finding their prize. Days later, Arden overheard something chilling from a passing group of survivors. The Empress herself had spoken across the channels of her empire. Her voice, they said, was cold and sharp as a blade. She had lost her sacred predator, the one bound to her throne. She had promised wealth and power to anyone who returned it, and death to anyone who dared to keep it hidden. Entire fleets were scouring the galaxy for signs of the beast. Arden felt the predator's eyes on him as he listened to the rumors. He knew the truth. He had her missing guardian sleeping under his roof. He thought about what would happen if he revealed the truth. The humans would kill it out of fear. The aliens would take it back and slaughter him for touching what was not his. The only choice left was silence. Every day that passed, the secret grew heavier. The predator followed him like a shadow, its loyalty unshaken. But Arden began to wonder what kind of bond was being formed. Was it love? Was it instinct? Or was it something darker, something woven into the creature's blood? The predator began protecting him in ways Arden had not expected. When raiders tried to steal from the ruins again, it did not wait for his command. It leapt from the shadows, tearing through their weapons, scattering them like leaves in the wind. The survivors spoke of a demon haunting the ashes, but to Arden it was no demon. It was his companion. He cleaned the predator's wounds, fed it, and whispered to it like a man speaks to a friend. For the first time in years, he was not alone. Still, the danger grew with every passing day. The alien scouts returned more often, searching the ruins with sharper eyes. Human soldiers, too, had begun to whisper about traitors hiding alien secrets. Arden felt the walls closing in. Yet each night, when the predator curled beside him and let out its low, steady purr, he found himself unwilling to give it up. The galaxy might burn for this creature, but here in the ruins it was just his. His choice, his secret, his bond. Arden did not know it yet, but the predator's true power had not even awakened. What he had seen was only the beginning. The Empress searched the stars for her missing beast, and soon her hunters would come closer. And when they did, Arden's secret would no longer be safe. The predator was no longer a cub, no longer helpless, no longer hidden. The secret was growing into something the galaxy would not ignore. The predator was no longer small. Its shoulders rose to Arden's chest, its claws sharp enough to cut steel, its tail swinging with quiet strength. At night, Its golden eyes glowed in the dark like twin suns, and the survivors whispered about the beast that haunted the ruins. Arden did not answer their questions. He walked among them as a soldier, a man of few words. But when he returned to the broken shelter, the predator would be waiting for him, watching him with a loyalty no human had ever shown. Still, Arden felt the weight of danger pressing closer every day. The Alien Empire had sent more scouts. Their sleek ship circled low, scanning the ruins with beams of light. Soldiers moved through the rubble in hunting groups, their weapons raised, their voices sharp as they called to each other. Arden stayed low, guiding the predator into tunnels and shadows. But the beast was growing restless. It could smell its kind, or something tied to its blood. Its body tensed and its growls rumbled deep. Arden feared the day when hiding would no longer be enough. One night, a group of alien trackers cornered him near the edge of the ruins. Their scanners had picked up unusual energy, traces left by the predator's growing strength. Arden pressed his back against the cold wall, rifle in hand, while the predator crouched behind him, silent, but coiled like a spring. The aliens spoke. In their tongue, words Arden barely understood, but he caught one phrase: the Empress's guardian. His heart froze. They were close. Too close. Then one of the trackers raised his scanner toward Arden. The predator's muscles tensed, and before Arden could stop it, the beast struck. It moved like lightning, claws tearing through armor, fangs sinking into alien flesh. The night filled with screams as the other trackers fired their weapons, beams of burning light cutting through the air. Arden rolled aside, firing back with his rifle. The predator leapt, its tail smashing a soldier into the wall, its claws ripping another's weapon apart. The ground shook beneath the fury of its attack. When the battle ended, the trackers lay broken, their blood dark against the rubble. The predator stood over them, growling low, its scales marked with fire and smoke. Arden stared, chest heaving. He had seen soldiers fight. He had never seen death move so fast. The predator turned its eyes toward him then, golden and fierce. For a moment, Arden felt a flicker of fear. This creature was no longer a helpless cub. It was a weapon, a storm of claws and rage. Yet it lowered its head, stepping closer, pressing its snout against his arm. Arden raised a trembling hand and touched it. The bond between them was not broken, but now he understood why the Empress had treasured such beasts. They were not just guardians. They were living weapons of war. The survivors spoke louder after that night. They found the bodies of the trackers, torn apart in ways no human weapon could manage. Whispers spread quickly. There was a monster in the ruins, something even the aliens feared. Some believed it was a curse. Others believed it was hope, a weapon sent by fate to protect them. Arden listened and said nothing. He could not tell them the truth. If they knew what lived beside him, they would either try to kill it or try to use it. Neither choice would end well. The secret grew heavier on his shoulders with each passing day, but the aliens did not stop. The death of their trackers, only, fueled their search. More patrols swept through, more ships circled overhead. They left no stone unturned, burning villages, interrogating survivors, searching for a beast that had been born for their Empress alone. Arden began moving with more care, shifting shelters, keeping the predator deep underground. Yet he knew it was only a matter of time. They were not just searching, they were hunting, and sooner or later, the hunter would become the hunted. One evening, Arden looked into the predator's eyes and saw something strange. Its gaze was sharper, more knowing. When he spoke, it tilted its head as though it was trying to understand the meaning of his words. Its growls had changed too, no longer just animal sounds, but something closer to a language of its own. Arden realized with a chill that this creature was not simply growing stronger. It was becoming something more. Something that could think, choose, and perhaps even speak. That truth made the danger greater still. If the aliens found it, they would not just reclaim it. They would unleash it upon the galaxy once more. Arden sat in the silence of the ruins, his rifle across his knees, the predator resting at his side. The firelight flickered against the walls, casting long shadows. He thought of the Empress somewhere out in the stars, waiting for her guardian to return. He thought of the war burning across human colonies, each day worse than the last. And he thought of the choice he had made that night, when he saved a helpless cub instead of killing it. That choice had grown into a secret the galaxy would one day discover. The predator shifted closer, its body warm against his arm. It was no longer just his secret, it was his fate. And soon fate would not let him hide any longer. The predator no longer looked like a beast that belonged in the shadows. Its body had grown tall and powerful, scales gleaming in the dim light of the ruins. Its movements were sharp, controlled, almost regal. When it walked beside Arden, people no longer whispered about a monster. They spoke of something greater, something unnatural, as though the ruins themselves bowed under its presence. Arden heard their voices and knew the day of hiding was nearing its end. Word reached the survivors one morning through stolen broadcasts. The Empress of the Alien Empire had spoken again, her voice filling every channel with cold fury. She revealed that her sacred guardian, the predator bound to her throne, had gone missing. Her enemies had mocked her, believing her weakened. She swore this insult would not stand. She promised entire planets would burn until her guardian returned. She described the beast with chilling detail, its scales, its golden eyes, its mark of blood. Arden's breath caught as he looked at the predator beside him. The description was exact. There was no longer any doubt. The creature he had raised was the Empress's missing guardian. The survivors who heard the broadcast trembled. Some believed the monster in the ruins was the very one she spoke of. Others laughed nervously, saying no human would be foolish enough to keep such a beast. Arden kept silent, though his heart raced. He had not just saved a cub. He had stolen the Empire's pride, its weapon, its living symbol of power. The weight of that truth pressed heavy on his chest. He realized that if the aliens discovered it here, they would not stop with fire and blood. They would bring down the full wrath of their empire. That night, as Arden sat by the fire, the predator stared at him with eyes glowing brighter than before. Its growls had taken on new patterns, sounds that carried rhythm, almost like words forming inside its throat. Arden spoke to it softly, telling stories of battles, of the earth before the war, of the skies when they were free. The predator tilted, its head, listening closely. For the first time, Arden wondered if the creature understood far more than it showed. Perhaps it remembered something from its past, something tied to the Empress. Perhaps it was not learning speech but remembering. Days later, alien forces swept deeper into human territory. Reports came of entire villages burned, searching not for soldiers but for one beast. The Empress's demand had spread like fire. She promised glory to anyone who returned the predator alive, and pain beyond measure to those who hid it. The galaxy whispered of her rage, of her desperate search. Arden knew it was only a matter of time before they reached the ruins again, and this time they would not send scouts. They would send armies. The survivors grew restless. Some began to suspect Arden. They had seen him vanish into the ruins, returning with fresh food when no one else could find any. They had seen the strange tracks in the ash that always seemed to follow his path. One evening, a man confronted him, asking in a harsh voice if he was hiding something. Arden gave no answer. His hand rested on his rifle, his eyes cold. The man backed away, but the suspicion did not fade. Arden realized that the danger was not just from aliens. His own people could betray him if they guessed the truth. The predator sensed it too. Its growls became sharper, its body more alert. It stayed close to Arden, never wandering far. Once, when a stranger tried to follow them, through the ruins the predator turned suddenly, its tail slamming the ground, its eyes burning with a golden fire that froze the man in terror. Arden pulled the beast away, but the message was clear. The predator would not let anyone come between them. It was bound to him now in ways that neither of them fully understood. But the bond carried a cost. That same night, Arden dreamed of a throne surrounded by fire. Upon it sat the Empress, her eyes sharp and merciless, her voice whispering through the flames. "You hold what is mine," she said, her words searing into his mind. "You keep my blood. My power, my crown. Arden woke in a cold sweat, the predator's head resting on his chest. He touched its scales and whispered, "You're not hers anymore." The predator's eyes opened slowly, and for the first time, Arden felt it understood every word. The truth was now clear. He had raised not just a beast but the living weapon of an empire, the guardian tied to an alien throne. The Empress wanted it back, and she would not stop until the galaxy itself burned. But the predator was no longer hers. It had chosen its path, chosen the man who saved it, chosen loyalty beyond blood. Arden knew war was coming, greater than any he had faced, and when it came, the galaxy would see what bond had been forged in the ashes. The Empress searched the stars with rage, but deep in the ruins of a broken world, her missing predator stood beside a human soldier, ready for the storm to come. The ruins no longer felt safe. The predator had grown to its full size, larger than any human Arden had ever seen, muscles coiled like steel, golden eyes glowing even in daylight. Its presence alone was enough to silence whispers among survivors. Yet Arden knew their time of hiding was over. The Empress's armies had arrived. The sound of warships roared across the skies, and the ground trembled as alien troops marched through the ashes. They were not searching anymore. They were hunting. With fury, Arden guided the predator through tunnels beneath the ruins, moving like shadows. He could hear the alien voices echoing above, their commands sharp and merciless. He knew what they wanted. They were not here for humans. They were here for the beast by his side. The predator growled low, its tail lashing, but Arden placed a hand on its snout, whispering for silence. For now they needed to wait. But waiting would not last. The armies had come, and the ruins would soon drown in fire. When the first attack struck, it came with blinding force. Alien soldiers stormed the streets, their weapons unleashing beams of light that tore through walls. Survivors scattered, screaming as fire consumed what little shelter remained. Arden raised his rifle, firing back in bursts, his shots cutting through armor where he could. The predator leapt into battle, claws tearing through enemies, its roar echoing louder than thunder. The aliens had expected a beast, but what they faced was a storm of fang and fury fighting beside a human. Their lines broke under the assault, yet for every soldier the predator struck down, more came. Dropships landed, pouring troops into the battlefield. Tanks rolled forward, their cannons pounding the ruins into dust. Arden moved fast, guiding the predator through smoke and fire, striking hard, then vanishing before the enemy could surround them. Together they fought like one body, man and beast moving as though bound by instinct. Arden fired from cover while the predator smashed through walls, cutting through armored lines. For the first time, the aliens felt fear. The Empress's weapon had returned, but it was no longer hers. It was humanity's shield. The survivors watched in awe and terror. From hidden corners they saw Arden and the predator tearing through the enemy, holding the line when all hope seemed lost. Some whispered that the beast was cursed, others that it was blessed, a sign that humanity was not yet broken. Arden ignored their voices. He fought not for glory, not for whispers, but for survival. Every trigger pulled, every order shouted. To the predator was a promise that he would not let the Empress reclaim what was his. The battle raged for hours. Alien commanders barked orders demanding the beast be taken alive, but their soldiers faltered under its fury. The predator leapt onto a tank, its claws ripping through metal, its tail smashing the cannon aside. Arden covered it with fire, cutting down soldiers who tried to swarm it. Explosions lit the night sky, and for a brief moment the humans pushed the enemy back. The ruins became a battlefield of legend, where one man and one beast turned an army into ash. But the victory was not complete. Above, the largest ship descended, its shadow covering the ruins like a storm cloud. From it came a new force, elite hunters clad in dark armor, their weapons glowing with alien energy. They moved with precision, their eyes fixed only on the predator. Arden felt his chest tighten. These were not scouts, not soldiers. These were the Empress's chosen hunters, sworn to retrieve her guardian or die trying. He gripped his rifle tighter, glancing at the predator. Its growl deepened, its body lowering, ready for the fight it had been born to face. The clash was brutal. The hunters moved fast, their blades humming with energy, cutting through stone as though it were air. The predator met them head-on, claws clashing with weapons, sparks flying with every strike. Arden fired at their flanks, forcing them to split, their attention, but still they pressed hard. One hunter struck Arden across the shoulder, sending him to the ground. Pain seared through him, but before the blade could finish him, the predator slammed into the attacker, crushing it beneath its weight. Arden staggered up, his vision blurred, but his will unbroken. Together they fought on. When the last hunter fell, silence spread across the battlefield. The survivors emerged from hiding, staring at the sight before them. Arden stood bloodied, his rifle smoking, the predator by his side, its scales glowing faintly in the firelight. The ruins were littered with alien bodies, their machines broken, their banners burned. For the first time since the war began, humanity had not just survived an assault, they had won. But Arden knew the truth. This was not the end. This was the beginning of something greater. The Empress would not accept this defeat. She would come herself if she had to. Arden looked at the predator, its golden eyes locked on him, steady and unshaken. The bond between them had carried them through fire and death, but the storm was not over. Ahead lay the final choice, a choice that would decide the fate of humans, aliens, and the galaxy itself. The Empress had lost her guardian once. Soon she would try to take it back with her own hands. The battlefield lay silent after the clash. Smoke rose from broken machines and the scent of ash lingered in the air. Survivors whispered among themselves, staring at the predator as if it were a god of war. Arden stood beside it, blood dripping from his wounds, his rifle heavy in his hands. They had survived the hunters, but Arden knew the storm was not over. The Empress would not send more soldiers. She would come herself. The predator's golden eyes gleamed as though it already sensed her approach. That night the skies burned with the descent of the Empress's flagship. It hovered above the ruins like a dark sun, its shadow swallowing the land. From its heart descended a figure cloaked in armor of silver and black. Her crown shimmered with alien light, her eyes sharp as blades. The Empress had come for her guardian. She stepped onto the ruins with calm steps, her presence heavier than any army. Soldiers bowed behind her, but none dared step closer. This was not a battle for them. This was between the Empress, her beast, and the human who dared to keep it. Arden stood tall, though pain tore at his body. His rifle was raised, but deep inside, he knew bullets would not end this fight. The predator growled low, placing itself between Arden and the Empress. Its scales bristled, its tail lashed, and its eyes glowed like fire. The Empress raised a single hand and the predator froze. A voice rang inside the ruins, not in sound but in the mind. "You are mine," she spoke, her voice like chains. "You are bound to my blood, forged to guard my throne. Return to me." The predator shivered, caught between two bonds that pulled at its very soul. Arden felt the beast tremble. He stepped forward, his voice steady despite the fear in his chest. "No," he said. "It isn't yours anymore." The Empress turned her eyes to him, sharp and cruel. "You are nothing," she hissed. "A soldier, a broken man, a thief clinging to what he does not understand. You cannot keep what was born of my blood." Arden's grip tightened on his rifle, but he did not raise it higher. Instead, he looked at the predator, his voice softer now. "You have to choose. You're not a weapon, not hers, not mine, just yours." The ruins went still as the choice hung heavy in the air. The predator lowered its head, eyes burning with golden light. It turned toward the Empress, its growl rising, its body tensed to obey. For a heartbeat, it seemed ready to walk to her throne once more. But then it turned back toward Arden, the man who had lifted it from death, who had fed it, spoken to it, fought beside it. Its growl deepened, and with a roar that split the sky, it broke the chains of the Empress's voice. The ground shook as it lunged, Not at Arden, but at her. The Empress raised her hands, power surging like lightning, but the Predator's strike sent her crashing back against the stone. The soldiers gasped, frozen in fear. None had ever seen the Empress fall. Arden raised his rifle and fired into the ranks of her guard, each shot echoing like thunder. The survivors, emboldened, rose from the ruins with weapons in hand. Together, they charged, their shouts shaking the night. The Predator fought with fury, claws and tail tearing through the Empress's soldiers, its loyalty now clear to all. The Empress rose again, her crown cracked, her fury burning like fire. "You betray me," she screamed at the Predator. "I gave you life." The beast roared back, standing beside Arden. Its answer was final. It had chosen. The battle raged one last time, fire against claw, steel against flesh. Arden fought at the Predator's side, every movement a bond unbroken. When the dawn broke, the flagship of the Empress lay shattered, its shadow gone from the sky. The soldiers who had survived fled into the stars, their voices trembling with fear of what they had seen. On the ruins stood Arden, his rifle empty, his body broken but alive. Beside him stood the Predator, scales glowing in the morning sun, its eyes calm and steady. They had won not just a battle but a truth the galaxy could not ignore. The Empress had been defeated. Her guardian had chosen a human over her throne. The story spread like wildfire, carried on the voices of survivors, whispered through the stars. They spoke of the soldier who raised the beast of an empire, of the bond that no crown could command, of the day when humanity stood not as prey but as equal. Arden never sought such legend, but it found him. Wherever he walked, the Predator walked beside him, no longer a weapon, no longer a secret but a friend. In the end, Arden returned to the ruins one last time. He stood among the ashes, his hand resting on the Predator's scales. "We started here," he whispered, "and now the galaxy knows." The Predator pressed its head against him, its golden eyes glowing with peace. For the first time since the war began, Arden felt hope. Not because the fight was over, but because he knew that whatever battles lay ahead, he would not face them alone. The Predator had chosen its true path, and it was with him. The galaxy would remember that choice forever.